Hello and welcome. Today we are going to be taking a look at Bobbi Brown, and we're going to be looking at the holiday eyeshadow palette. This is the Sweet Decadence eyeshadow palette, and it is their Luxe Shadows. I just realized I had that upside down, but this is going to be the Sweet Decadence. So you can see we have kind of this like candy theme, you know, the candy stripes. And then we have the clear acetate with the gold Bobbi Brown logo kind of on top of that. So it looks like it is, you know, it's an overlay. So this is going to be the eyeshadow palette. I actually think it is a gorgeous palette that is great year round. And I love to see that, especially during the holidays. You know, sometimes I just like those light, shimmery looks, particularly during holiday season. And this palette has that. In addition, I picked up a couple of other Bobbi Brown items, you know, during the Sephora sale. So the Bobbi Brown Pot Rouge Velvet Mattes, I love them. So I had picked up the Soft Plum originally. I have a video on that already. And so I wanted to get another one. So I got Pomegranate 61. Which is kind of like more of a cool berry. And then I picked up another one of the Luxe Cashmere matte lipsticks. This is a really nice velvet formula. And this one is in the shade Sandwash Pink. So we're going to take a look at all of these. And let's go ahead. We're going to start off with the eyeshadow palette. All right, so this palette is limited edition. And we have some really great neutral shades here. And you know, Bobbi Brown in general does tend to lean a little bit warm compared to the swatches you have online. So let's take a look at them. We're going to start by swatching the 4 mattes and then the 4 shimmers because that's how I did the eye swatches today. And I figure, you know, we'll keep it consistent. So first up, we have kind of this white cream kind of shade here. So this is just going to be a nice cream matte, and this is going to be a silky formula. This shade is actually called Warm Cream. Next up, we have this one, which is the Sandy Brown Matte, and this is going to be kind of that warm honey brown. So think of like that honey caramel kind of shade. And then this one down here, Toasted Taupe. This is such a great shade for me. I love this one. So this is going to be pretty much a classic taupe. It is a little bit warmer than most of the taupes that I skew towards. It's more of that warm brown with the gray versus more of a neutral brown with the gray. So, you know, it's definitely a taupe, but it is a little bit warmer. And then our last matte here is the dark chocolate. I love how we have 4 mattes and 4 shimmers, and you can see that we have a variety of tones in here. So makes it really, really versatile. And these mix and match very beautifully. Actually, this matte formula in here is very silky and easy to use. You know, I was looking at some of my other Bobbi Brown palettes from over the years, and I feel like this formula has been improved upon than some of the previous releases. So let's take a look at the shimmers, and we have Sugar Coated. All right, so this first shimmer here, this is going to be Sugar Coated, and you can see it is going to be a light pink shimmer. And yeah, it's a really pretty soft pink. It's a slightly cool pink, but you can see when the light hits it, you can see kind of as I shift my arm, it gets a little bit warm with some of the, well, it warms up a little bit in some of the lighting, but it's going to lean cool overall. It's neutral leaning cool. Then we have the shade Citrine, which is another shimmer. This is really going to be more of your soft gold champagne. I think it's a really versatile shade here. Right now in my eyes, these are my 2 major shades. I have those together. Those are my 2 favorite shades along with the taupe in this palette. Then on the bottom row, we have the Honey Bronze. So this is our Honey Bronze shimmer. And I do want to note that the formula of these 2 versus the formula of these 2 down here, you can kind of see from the pans, these 2 look a little bit chunkier. They're both both formulas are smooth and creamy, but these are a little bit chunkier that kind of meld together, like we've seen with a lot of the Luxe shadows over the years, whereas these are a little bit more finely milled, slightly different. This one in particular is your quintessential Luxe shadow formula that we've seen for forever from Bobbi Brown. This one is slightly different because it is more finely milled. It's very creamy, but it's just slightly different because it doesn't have those larger chunks. So this shade here is called Pink Champagne. It's really a peach though. I'm not sure why they call it Pink Champagne. I would call it Peach Champagne personally, but it's definitely peach. It's not really even a warm pink. It's just peach to me. So these are the 8 shades in this Sweet Decadence palette. I think it's a really great palette, and I'm really happy that they've included this kind of light pink shimmer. If you take out this, the taupe and the chocolate brown, like a lot of, basically 3 of the 4 shimmers are warm. This one's cool. This is cool. The taupe is pretty neutral. The cream, it's actually neutral for a cream as well. So, overall, the palette itself is neutral, leaning a bit warm. But those cooler tones in there that, although they don't make up half of the palette, they really do make the palette a very versatile product. So let's take a look at these on the eyes, and we'll take a look at the eye swatches. For the eye swatches here, I did use the Sonia G Soft Shader and then also a fingertip application so you can see the difference. And note when I'm using the mattes here, how silky smooth they are and how easily they blend. And, a lot of times with matte shadows in particular, those silky formulas, when I'm doing eye swatches and I'm continually washing my eyes, it's just like, sometimes that little bit of moisture that, it's going to remain for a few minutes, that little bit of moisture can really make things look a little bit patchy, and that doesn't really happen with these. So I do want to highlight this matte formula here because I do notice a difference with how it performs versus previous palettes. It just seems a little bit better, and really happy with that. The Sweet Decadence eyeshadow palette is limited edition and it retails for $70 US. I purchased mine from the Bobbi Brown website directly. We have a 1-year shelf life on these. Each shade is 1.5 grams. So we have 8 shades at 1.5 grams each. It is made in China, which is something a little different for these Bobbi Brown shadows. Typically they are made in Italy. And I do want to note that although we do have, particularly that honey bronze shimmer shade, feels just like our traditional, Luxe formula. And several of these shimmers are reminiscent of that. They just feel like slightly tweaked version of the original Luxe formula. This does not say that they are the Luxe shadows anywhere. And part of me wonders if that has to do with the way that they have been produced now. So these are made in China. Traditionally, they've been made in Italy in the past. Overall, I think this is a really nice palette. As I've mentioned, the mattes here are silky, they're smooth, they're easy to blend out. We have a variety of, shades here, kind of going from the lightest to a very deep chocolate brown. And again, we have different undertones in here, and you can mix and match these. So for example, if you want like a cooler dark chocolate, just mix a little bit of the sandy brown matte in with that, and you can warm that up a little bit. I think I said cooler, I meant warmer dark chocolate. But you can kind of mix and match to get the undertones you want because we have such a range in here. As for the shimmers, the 2 in the top row, the Sugar Coated and Citrine, those are both going to be a slightly chunkier formula. It's very creamy. They melt together on the lids. They're also going to be a bit more shimmery. They're a little more sparkly than the 2 on the bottom. In particular, the Sugar Coated shade, you can really sheer that out and just use as a topper. Citrine can as well, but it's going to be a little bit more opaque than Sugar Coated. And it's interesting, actually, we have different varying levels of opacity for all of the shimmers. So Sugar Coated is going to be the most sheer, followed by Citrine. Then we have the Pink Champagne and the Honey Bronze are both going to be more of a satin metallic finish versus a true shimmer finish. So I would actually call those by a different finish versus what they have here. They only label things matte or shimmer. So I do want to note that there is a difference with those, as those are Honey Bronze and Pink Champagne are definitely going to be opaque shades there. The Honey Bronze is going to have a bit more of a metallic glint to it because of that kind of golden bronze shimmer that you kind of see on top of that, versus the Pink Champagne, which is really more of a satin with a kind of metallic blended into it. You don't really see as much of that sheen. So just some slight differences there. I think all of the formulas are really easy to use. They perform beautifully on the eyes, and they are, I think it's a really great palette, and I think we've got a great range of shades here. Now, although these are not our traditional luxe shadows from Bobbi Brown, there definitely are similarities to these. And if you've been purchasing some of her limited edition palettes, or rather the brand's limited edition palettes over the last year or two, you've noticed they've been kind of tweaking and changing that formula anyway. So this is definitely in line with that, but I do think that we have an improvement over some of the previous palettes. So let's take a look at some of her previous, or some of the brand's previous releases. So this is one of my favorite palettes, not just from Bobbi Brown, but one of my favorite palettes. This is the Luxe Precious Metals palette from Bobbi Brown. This came out a couple of years back, and it was fantastic. I ended up buying 2 of these. So you can see, we definitely have different shades, but again, these are going to be a luxe formula, but this is one of those examples where they were kind of tweaking it, and it was a bit smoother and a bit more metallic in general, so slightly different. I'm going to go ahead and swatch all of these shades here vertically so you can just kind of see how they compare. You can see this is, this last shade in the new palette is kind of similar to a cross between those two. We definitely have some similarities, but no dupes in this palette. Formula-wise, though, is different. This is really, it has kind of that silky satin type formula with a metallic glint to them, and it's not that rich, creamy formula that we see often with the Luxe shadows. But this one is a favorite of mine. I absolutely love that palette. However, one of the recent Luxe palettes, I love this packaging here, but this was the Luxe Iron Cheek palette with the Moonstone Glow in the middle. This was another endeavor here. Again, you could see that they were changing some of the formulas here. Some of these worked out and some of them did not. So our first 2 shades here, we've got Moonstone and Lunar. I'm going to put these here. And Moonstone, is a classic shade. Our mattes here, though, were a bit more dry. They're not that smooth, silky formula. And these overall ended up being a bit more of a looser glitter, and is a very nice palette, but also you can see it's pretty light. So I feel like the quality of these shadows, while these are still nice, they are a step down from this new one. And yeah, there have definitely been some hits and misses over time. This was one, though, that I liked, but it still wasn't the best formulas from Bobbi Brown, in my opinion. And then this one here, this is Star-Crossed. And again, we've got traditional Luxe shadows. This has more of our original formula here. We've got Stargazer and Petal. And these have kind of that creamy yet grippy formula that the Luxe shadows are, we're so familiar with. So again, shades aren't similar, but I just kind of wanted to go over how the formulas kind of look and feel. So there are some differences here, but overall, I think they are, I really like this new palette. I think it's a really great palette. And one of the things I wanted to note, compared to this palette here, you can see these glitters here are pretty loose. There's definitely a fallout with these. You get a little bit of fallout with the shimmers in this new palette, but not very much. It's much more contained than it was with this set here. Shimmers in the, in this one, the precious metals. You can see those are really more just metallic shades. So the shimmers are more contained in that one as well. So just wanted to kind of give you a few quick comparisons. Let's go ahead and move on to the blush. All right, so the Bobbi Brown Pot Rouge Velvet Matte came out earlier this year, and I absolutely love the plum one that I purchased originally, so I couldn't pass up this pomegranate shade during the Sephora sale. And by the way, we do have another Sephora 20% off coming up very soon, so just, you know, pay attention to that. And then this here is our shade. It's kind of like a raspberry. So you can see it blends out. It's a really beautiful cool tone berry, but it's not overly cool. So it's definitely a cool tone shade, but sometimes they become just a little bit too cool. This, I think, is the right balance. It's really a crushed raspberry. Oops. Not getting this down, but I wanted to compare the Tom Ford. This is the Black Orchid or Iconic Orchid blush that came out and kind of disappeared quickly. And you can see that the tones here are very, very similar. So if you missed out on it, I do think the Bobbi Brown is a good alternative. There is a difference. The Tom Ford is perhaps just a little bit, it's a little bit cooler. There's a little more pink in it versus that, you know, reddish berry hue. So this has a little bit more fuchsia versus the Bobbi Brown, but I do think that they're pretty close. And what I really love is kind of this velvet cloud finish on the skin. So let's take a look at this one on the skin. The Pot Rouge Velvet Matte blushes retail for $36 US. They are a whipped matte blush for cheeks, and these can also be used on the lips as well. They look very nice on the lips. I did not demo them on the lips here, but I do actually like that look. I wanted to showcase this lipstick today though. So anyway, we have 8.5 grams of product with this, and these are made in Korea. If you were a fan of the Shiseido whipped blushes, these are very similar. We've seen a lot of whipped blush formulas kind of come out this year, and I think the Bobbi Brown ones are one of the best. So I really love these ones in particular. And, you know, I tie it actually with the Sicily. Although the Sicily doesn't, there are only 3 shades, but the formula wise, you know, I think the Sicily and the Bobbi Brown are on par with each other, and they are definitely favorites. So this is described as a 2-in-1 multitasking blush for cheeks and lips with a soft matte finish. This velvety whipped formula features skin flattering shades that make it easy to build, blur, and tap into any look. And again, I just think it's a really beautiful kind of that soft cloud finish on the skin. And it works really well to add just a little bit of color without adding texture. And that's what I really like about it. Right now, you know, my family and I, we've been battling like colds and things. My skin's kind of a mess. I've been dealing with psoriasis outbreaks. So, you know, anything that's not highlighting that texture is definitely a win for me. And that's what this blush is doing for me. You know, I think it looks great. My skin right now is actually in terrible shape, and this blush still looks good. So very happy with the formula for these. I would definitely recommend trying them out. They do last all day, by the way, so I think that's another really great benefit to these. All right, so just one last comparison. I did want to take the Soft Plum. This is shade 60, so the Pomegranate is 61. This is 60. This is the original shade that I bought. Let's go ahead and put this one here, and you can see it's going to be a bit more muted. It's really, I don't really consider it a plum per se. It's more of a rose, perhaps a touch of like a red plum in there. But when I hear plum, I think a little bit more purple. There's really no purple in there. I would consider it more of a tea rose. It's pretty neutral when you blend it out, but when you build it up, you see some warmth. So these are the Pomegranate and the Soft Plum. And again, this is the Tom Ford Iconic Orchid. So I hope that was helpful. Let me just compare the Sicily too. I have the Sicily in shade number 3, Berry. So I'm going to put this one right underneath. And you can see this is definitely going to be more of a, you can see it's a warmer tone rose shade, kind of like a warm medium tone rose. And I think it's a really pretty shade, but it's definitely closer to the Soft Plum than it is to the Pomegranate. But again, formula and finish wise, I think the Sicily and the Bobbi Brown both give you, you know, pretty much identical finishes on the cheeks, and they both last all day. They're really great. Bobbi Brown, again, is less expensive, so I think that's definitely a win. All right, and last up, I want to take a look at the Luxe Cashmere Matte Lipstick in Sandwash Pink 332. I personally really like this formula. Again, you're looking at kind of that velvety cloud finish on the lips. I think these lipsticks look best. Let's take a look at the demo. When you have kind of that lighter layer and you kind of buff it out a little bit versus piling it up. When you add several layers of this, I do think that's when it can look a little dry on the lips. However, it does not feel dry on the lips. So this is one that I think really looks best with kind of like a lighter coat and kind of blur that out a little bit. And I think it's a really great formula. The shades on these, though, definitely skew very warm. I have picked up the shades that, you know, was really trying to get kind of the lighter, cooler pinks, and yeah, you know, they're really not cool. So they're definitely going to be warmer hues here. So as for product details here, the Luxe Cashmere Matte Lipsticks retail for $45 US, and we have 3.5 grams of product, and these are made in Korea. According to Bobbi Brown, it's a matte lipstick minus the dry out, in lip enhancing shades for every occasion and mood. Swipes on an ultra matte finish with a hydrating cashmere soft feel. And they're easy to wear shades that complement all skin tones to elevate any look. And again, I would have to say that they definitely skew warm. Sandwash Pink is actually described as a cool mauve pink. I would say it's definitely more of a soft peachy rose on me. I have neutral skin tones with cool overtones. So I'm neutral leaning cool. And yeah, it definitely is going to skew warmer on me, but I think it's a really beautiful everyday shade, kind of that neutral leaning warm. The other shade that I have is Neutral Rose, number 315, which is described as a neutral mauve pink. And again, that definitely skews warm as well. So let me go ahead and share that one with you. So let's swatch both of these. I didn't want to remove these because I did want you to be able to see them one more time. But let's go ahead. We'll put the lipsticks here. So this is our Sandwash Pink. You can see it's a really beautiful soft pink, but there are a few, you know, there's a bit of a peachy undertone to it. So this is neutral, leaning slightly warm. And then we have Neutral Rose. So this was the first one that I bought. And this is going to be a bit deeper. Sorry, it's really hard to swatch with my left hand here. But you can see that this one is really going to be more of a tawny rose. It's more of that nude shade there. You know, think of something more like a brownish tea rose with some peach in it. So these are both described as having mauve in them. I don't really consider either of them to. Sandwash Pink is definitely cooler in tone than the Neutral Rose, but this is going to be neutral, leaning slightly warm. This is definitely going to be more of a warm neutral. So you're definitely further into the warm end of the spectrum. It's a soft warm, but it's a beautiful nude shade. So one more time, let's take a look at all of the swatches. And overall, I'm really happy with all of the products here. I think you can create a really beautiful everyday look with this eyeshadow palette, or, you know, great holiday looks. And again, you don't need special makeup for holiday makeup, but I do think that everything we featured here today works really well for that. So I love, honestly, these mattes here are great. Even just having those 4 shades would make a really nice everyday palette. The shimmers here are fantastic. In particular, I love the Sugar Coated and Citrine shades. So I think it's a really great palette. And although they've been tweaking the formulas, I think they've done a really nice job with these here. And we did kind of compare it to some previous palettes here. As for the blush, this is the Pomegranate shade that I picked up. This is a permanent item, and I think it's such a great formula. I really hope that they add some additional shades next year. Love to see that. And we have it in comparison with the Tom Ford Iconic Orchid. This is the Bobbi Brown Soft Plum, and this is the Sisley number 3 Berry. And then for lipsticks, again, we've got the Sandwash Pink and the Neutral Rose. And the formula for those, it is a really nice kind of that blurred cloud-like matte finish, but I do think it looks best kind of with a lighter coat, so you really get more of that cloudy look to the lips. So really great formula. And I did just want to swatch the Bobbi Brown pencil in Muted Rose. This is the lip pencil, just so you can kind of see how that color kind of goes with these two, because I do think it's a really great match with the neutral rose, but it does pair nicely with the Sandwash pink as well. So I hope this has been helpful. Let me know if you picked these up. Again, both the lipstick and the blush are items in the permanent collection. The eyeshadow palette, however, is limited edition. So thank you so much for tuning in. Please share your thoughts in the comments, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.